Thank you for having me. I appreciate you all inviting me back. I think the last time I was at one of these meetings, it was called GAHLA, so it's been a minute. So just quickly, I want to tell you a little bit about Economic Forum because I think having that context will help in the presentation I'm going to share with you today. So Economic Forum is a group of business leaders and other community leaders that's been around since the 80s, and it's really designed to keep people informed about what's happening related to the economy in Albuquerque, and also to build connections with our members. We have about 150 members, mostly CEOs, but also education, nonprofit, and other government leaders come to our programs. We put on 2 programs a month just to inform people on topics that are important to growing Albuquerque. So just to set that context, this is kind of where this presentation is coming from today. And it's really about how can we work together to advance Albuquerque and make Albuquerque a more business-friendly place. And we have some thoughts of a more strategic approach on how we can make this happen. So first, I'm going to tell you a little bit about a study we did with research and polling last summer. We talked to over 600 people in the Albuquerque area, just residents of Albuquerque area, as well as about 140 business leaders, and really wanted to get their take on what they think about business and the economy. And the results were fascinating, and I think they have really driven us to take a different approach to how we think about business in Albuquerque. And then the last piece I'm going to talk to you about is how can we all work together to bring the business community more focused around certain issues. So the long story short, here's the executive summary of what we heard in the research. The residents of Albuquerque are really looking for economic growth. They want economic growth in our community, and they're expecting the business community to take the lead on making Albuquerque a better place to be. The research also shows that there are some gaps in what people expect of business and how business is delivering on those things, which I'll talk about. And business leaders recognize these same gaps. In some cases, actually, business leaders can be a little bit harsher critics on themselves than even residents are. And then the Economic Forum has launched an effort called the Collaborative, where we're really trying to bring together the business associations around a common agenda, because we believe that if we can make Albuquerque more business-friendly, that the entire community will benefit from that. The Collaborative is made up of these organizations, so the leaders of all of these organizations get together every other month to talk about what's going on in their organizations, what they're hearing in the community, how can we work better together. We've invited other people to the table to have these conversations with us, and I'll talk more about this later, but this is the group that's responsible for bringing this survey to light. This research was done by Research and Polling. It was done about 9 months ago, and it really was designed to get a perception of what do people think about business in Albuquerque and how do they feel about economic growth. Economic Forum Collaborative drove this effort. Doug Campbell, who's a local investor, helped fund the survey, which is fantastic. And you all know Research and Polling. They do a ton of research and polling in our community, and they're really a sound resource for getting the data that matters. So like I said, we talked to over 600 people, whether it was an online survey or a phone call, and they were relevant or it was a statistically significant survey, meaning they are representative of the population of Albuquerque. And then we also sent the exact same online survey to about 140 business leaders. Well, we sent it to more, but 140 business leaders responded. And those lists were provided by all of the organizations that I mentioned before. So it was the members of those organizations. I'm not going to force you to read this slide. It's just to illustrate the point that the study was relevant to the population, different age groups, different ethnicities and races, education levels, income levels, Democrats, Republicans, independents, all different types of people answered this survey. Most of them were from Bernalillo County, but we also got responses from Sandoval and Valencia counties as well. And then same on the business side, pretty diverse group of folks answered this one as well. The thing that I think is important to note is these people said that they were a member of one of these or more of these organizations. So we got a pretty broad perspective from different types of businesses in the community. So if you remember 4 things that I have from today, this is what I want you to remember. These were the key points that we took away from the study. 96% of Albuquerque area residents believe economic growth is somewhat or very important. As you might imagine, business leaders, that was 100%. 87% of residents have a positive impression of locally owned businesses. 94% of business leaders feel the same. 72% of residents trust business to do what's right for the community. Business leaders have that number at 88%. And then just 15% of residents say that businesses have too much influence over government regulations and legislation. And at business leaders, that number is only 6%. So this gets into some of the more specifics of the data. On the overall strength of the local economy, the way that these slides are set up, on the left side is what residents think, and on the right side is what business leaders think. So you can see that it's about a third split on residents on how strong they think the economy is right now. Business leaders have a little bit slightly more negative impression of how the state of the economy is right now. This is how confident are you in the future growth of the economy? Again, the residents are on the left side and businesses on the right. And again, residents are a little bit more confident about what they see in the future growth of the economy. How important is economic growth? This is one of those 4 numbers that I want you to remember. It's a huge piece of the pie that both groups think that economic growth is really important to our community. All of that being said, we also asked them, what do you expect of the business community? What are you hoping the business community will get involved in throughout other aspects of the community? And there's some gaps there. We asked them, how important do you think things are? And compared to that, how well do you think business is doing? So I'm going to show you a long list of things here, and I'll make sure that Carl gets a PDF that has some of this information so you can spend more time with it. But the point is, people told us what they expect business to do in the community. And I think this is a really good checklist for you to think about as you all run businesses in our community, what people are looking for you to do. So if you look at this list, and you might not be able to read all of this, but these are the 10 things that people said are important to them regarding what businesses do. They want business to operate in ethical ways. They want business to improve the well-being of our community. They want businesses to provide job skills, partner with local schools on workforce development initiatives, help improve community public safety. They want support of local schools and universities. They want business to work with local and state government to improve the business climate. They want businesses to promote diversity and inclusion, and also support local charitable organizations. So this is a really clear call to action on what people are hoping the business community will do besides just running their business, right? And so that first column is how important are these things to you? The second column is how well do you think business is doing these things? And then the far column is what's that gap? And so I highlighted some of the ones that have the biggest gap, and these are the answers that residents gave. And you can see the gaps range from about 15, and there's some 20s and 30s in there. And then the exact same question was asked of business leaders, and those gaps almost double when it comes to business leaders. Business leaders almost have a more negative impression of how they're doing in the community and how they're showing up in the community. So I think this, to me, is just a clear call to action, like we can be better, and we can work together to be better. And I bet businesses are doing a lot of these things, but they're not talking about it. And I think we can do a better job of celebrating some of this work that's being done, whether that's in social media or in the news media outlets. I think this stuff is happening, but it's just not top of mind. We're not telling the good news. Some more questions. What's your impression of businesses in the area? This chart reads on this left side here is locally owned businesses, and you can see a very high positive impression of locally owned businesses. And then on the right side, these are regional or national companies. What's your impression of them? These companies that are doing business in our community. Do you trust business to do what's right for the community? A pretty high amount of people say that they do trust business, which I think sometimes we think that might be a different number. We weren't necessarily expecting this result, but I think it's good news. Like, they trust us to make the right decisions and do the right things for not only the employees, but the rest of the community. How engaged do you think businesses are in the community? There's definitely some room for growth here, and businesses getting more engaged in the community. So I think this is a real call to action. 51% of residents say that businesses are only somewhat engaged, and 55% of business leaders say the same. And this one is specifically about the government regulations and legislation. How involved should businesses be in that process? And again, only 15% say that businesses are too involved in this process, which I think, again, is a call for let's get more involved in making sure that the legislation and the policies that we are putting forth are friendly to business. So here's your chance again to remember these 4 things. Okay, so what do we do with all this information, right? It's great to have it, but we, like the deputy chief said, like, we got to have some action or it doesn't mean anything. So my other job is a strategic planner. And so I put on my strategic planning hat for this part and used a model that to kind of put forth what is the crux of the problem we're really trying to address, or what is the challenge that we're facing that we can work together on. And so first step in that strategic planning process is really diagnosing the problem. And I think all of you can probably relate to some of these things. You know, our regulatory and permitting environment when it comes to doing business can be tough. Can take a long time. There are a lot of hurdles. There's also an over-reliance in the economy on the public sector. You know, lots of government jobs. There's a lack of diversification in our economy, really relying heavily on the oil and gas industry and those kind of things. There's a deficit when it comes to workforce or talent. And there's also key quality of life deficiencies that are getting better, but there's work to be done still with education or healthcare or public safety. And then there's also a negative perception of our city, and that's not only externally, but internally. Sometimes we have our own problem of how we think about ourselves. So if I had, one sentence to describe what the real strategic crux is, it's that we have to improve the business climate. We have to improve all of those things that are listed at the top there to make it a more business-friendly place. And how are we going to do this? Economic Forum really believes in collaboration and alignment and bringing people together around a very focused agenda. And also we need measurable outcomes. We can't just say we're going to do something but don't have a way to decide if we did it or not. And then there has to be this idea of persistence, right? Continuity. We have to keep doing and keep working on things for the long term. So the collaborative is, like I mentioned, it's made up of all these different business associations and the leaders of those associations. And we're really working hard to come together around a focused agenda that will make it more business friendly here, and holding those people that are making policies or doing other things that impact the business climate. How can we make it stronger? Again, the list of organizations is here, and we purposely had, this group has been around for a long time. It used to be called BIC, maybe some of you have heard of that. So this isn't new, but I think it's just a different way of looking at it and really bringing these leaders together around action. So we did a strategic plan ourselves. We wrote a vision statement, we wrote a mission statement, and we are really out to just elevate the standing of the business community in Albuquerque. And the way we can do that is by collaborating and coordinating with each other and really making a stronger collective impact on Albuquerque's economy. And we need to do this in a trustworthy way, a pragmatic way. We need to be passionate about the work we're doing, and of course we need to be as influential as we can, and also be nonpartisan. Like, this isn't a political issue at all. It's just a matter of bringing people together around making some improvements to our city. So these are the commitments that we've put forth. Of course, we support economic growth, as well as the 96% of other people that took our survey. We are committed to meeting regularly to stay informed of what's going on with each other's work. We're also welcoming other people to the table. I'm going to talk in a minute about a new strong relationship we have with Mayor Keller and making some progress there. But we want to be that platform where people can come to this collaborative and run ideas by us and talk to us and get some input from the business community. And then we want to make sure that we're keeping strong relationships with others in the community, and we're telling positive stories about what's happening with the business community. All the work that you all are doing to make Albuquerque better, we want people to know about it. And like I said, we want to remain independent and nonpartisan. So the strategic approach is really simple, 2 things. One of them is encouraging the business community. Remember that list of things I showed with the expectations and the reality piece? Like, how can we be better about activating those things and celebrating those things? And then the second thing is to bring the business community together around very specific action items. And I think this probably goes without saying, but when business thrives, the entire community benefits, right? There are more jobs, there are higher wages, there are more taxes being generated, so the services that governments provide are better, there's more amenities. There's, healthcare is out in the world. There's retirement plans. Like, there's such a big impact that business has on our community. And I think we need to be better about telling that story and just explaining to people that, businesses aren't just in it for themselves. Business people are probably the most community-friendly people there are and really trying to make a difference. So again, I would encourage all of you to take this list and maybe think about how are you doing on these things. This is what people are expecting of us. And how can we be better about celebrating and talking about this stuff? And maybe if we're lacking in some areas, how can we activate that within our companies? And if you're part of an association, maybe even GAHLA, how can you train businesses to be better in some of these things? And then this alignment and action piece. There are a lot of different issues we could address, but the way to think about doing this is what's going to have the biggest impact on the business climate and making it better? How can we measure outcomes? What issues are most important and which ones are addressable? Because there might be some that are important that you can't really fix quickly or, maybe can't fix at all. So we got to pick the ones that are important and addressable. And then all of these organizations that I showed you previously can take action on this list of items in their own way. Everybody can work together with their skill sets to make sure that the work gets done. And then we also, which I'll tell you about a little bit in a minute, we launched a new movement. It's a storytelling movement, and it's called When Business Thrives. And it's designed to tell those business stories of what business leaders, employees, what people are doing in our community to make it better. So this is kind of that chart I was talking about of how important is something and how addressable is it. And if we can find the things in that top right corner, that's where we're going to find success. So some of you may have read an op-ed that we wrote for the Albuquerque Journal. It was called The 5 to Thrive. And this stemmed from a conversation we had with Mayor Keller. And we chose 5 things that we think can really make Albuquerque a better place. And if we can focus on these things for the long term, we can start to make a difference. And there are other things that could be on this list, but we have to start somewhere. So public safety is a big one, and really supporting Mayor Keller's effort in using technology and getting civilians involved and bringing in more officers, all of the things that the city's working on. Making sure that housing is affordable for people and there's transitional housing for those that are unhoused. Tax and regulation reform, how can we make the policy piece of it better? And downtown revitalization is one of our key efforts, and I'll talk more about that too. But we really think that if we can revitalize downtown, the rest of the city will come to life as well. And then, of course, the rail trail, it could be an important project. I'm sure those in the hospitality business realize this as well. So we think these 5 things are a good place to start, and I think if we can collaborate with the mayor and City Hall, that we'll have more success. So Mayor Keller came and spoke at Forum after the election, so we got the non-stump speech Mayor Keller, which was great. And he really just outlined what he expects of the business community, which was refreshing. We wanted to hear from him, what does he want us to do? So he gave the talk at Economic Forum, and then we wrote this op-ed with the 5 to Thrive, and now he's reposted the op-ed that we made. So he has shown his commitment to it as well. And we have a meeting scheduled with him in June where we're going to talk specifically about downtown revitalization and the things that all of those organizations are working on to make downtown better. And we want to kind of give him a list of, this is what we need your help with to make downtown better, whether that's programming and Civic Plaza or more security or whatever that is. We're going to share with him what's kind of our call for him to do. And so part of those 5 issues is that we want to hear from you all. This is a survey that you're welcome to take. You can take a picture of that QR code. And the 5 issues are listed there. And we want to hear what are the specific challenges you have in each of those 5 areas. And what ideas do you have on fixing them? Everybody has some ideas. I'm sure you've tried some things at some of your properties or your businesses, and we really want to know what you think. So I'll leave this up for a minute, but I would love for people to take this survey. And then this When Business Thrives movement, this is just getting started, but we have a website up. It's whenbusinessthrives.com. I encourage you also to go there. There's a form you can fill out and tell us if you want to get involved. Do you want us to tell the story of your business and what you're doing in the community? You know, we're looking for financial help in keeping this movement going. We want to start producing videos, you know, social media posts, even maybe paid media could go with this campaign, but it's all designed to get the word out about how business are having a positive impact in our community. So please visit this website. You can fill out a form and tell us how you'd like to get involved. And then again, just this summary of people want growth. They're expecting business to take the lead on making this happen. And there are some things that we can work on together to make the business climate more friendly. And there are things we can do as a business community to celebrate all the amazing things that we're doing. And so why do we want to do this now? Well, people are asking us to do it, first of all. Also, I think a lot of business leaders are frustrated with how things are, so we believe that if we can come together and find some collaboration and alignment, that maybe that mood and that motivation will improve. We're going to have a new governor in 2027, which is a big deal. We need to be ready for that and be prepared to, you know, be aligned around some things. And Forum's leadership is really dedicated to this collaboration effort and facilitating bringing people together. Thank you all. I appreciate it.